the last 9 days, we have been looking at schedules of some of the top teams in the NFL. Coming up on Monday, we will start looking at all of the teams, their entire year, how they fit into their conference, how they fit into their division. We'll do all 32 teams leading up to September 4th. But today is one final schedule I want to look at. And Zeno, let's start with you because the San Francisco 49ers, they've had an extended run, a run that's not very normal in the NFL because of how the business runs. But they paid their quarterback. They lose Debo. Kittle resigns. So they still have some of the guys. But as far as their schedule is concerned, where do you rate that this year?
Well, I think when you look at San Francisco, they are a team that's primed for a bounce back. And I think their schedule sets up pretty favorably. Outside of having their first two games on the road, they get weaker opponents in New Orleans, Arizona, and Jacksonville in three of their first four games. Seattle may be tough. They do have to go to a Thursday night game against Los Angeles. But again, I think this is a team, and even if you look at the back end of their schedule, I think they win the NFC West. I think they're a playoff team, and I think they surprise a lot of people, and Brock Purdy is a big year.
I think when you look at it, DG, and we also have to look at how our team's going to perform in 2025. But based off of what we know from a year ago, it doesn't scream jump off the page tons of big games, as Zeno just alluded to. Even these that I picked out as the key matchups, even that's not necessarily a murderer's row.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I want to point out is this San Francisco team, like they finished fourth last year in the West. And so because of that, they have a much easier schedule this season. And just looking at the top five matchups that we're looking at, this is probably the weakest that we've seen and put together on a screen so far. And so, yes, they do open up against Seattle, which I think is a very tough game. I think that they can easily get that game. And being a -3 versus the Cardinals in week 3, I don't love the 3, but if it's a 2.5, I think that the 49ers can easily win that game against Arizona.
This is a great point that DG just made, Mikey, is the fact that we may get some numbers in some matchups that normally for a team of this caliber, we would not normally see. But because of all of the injuries and everything that happened at the end of the year last year, they come in this year in a great place. And some of these numbers, maybe we do want to jump on them early as a future.
Yeah, you definitely want to jump on that +1.5 week 17 against the Chicago Bears, because by the time week 17 comes around, the Bears should be favored by at least 25 points or more going into that matchup. But in all seriousness, no, these numbers for the 49ers look very, very good. And listen, they kind of get the benefit of having a down year. If they can stay healthy, I agree with Zeno 100%. I think they can easily run away with the NFC West. Stafford is hurt already for the Rams. I mean, the Cardinals, I can't believe in them. And Seattle has Sam Darnold. So definitely get on the Niners early.
And that's the thing is when you're talking about individual matchups, Zeno, we know they play 6 against the NFC West, but particularly now without Debo, when you look at these matchups, how does it change from a handicapping perspective, knowing that you're not going to have a dude that's going to have 7 carries, and then Brandon Ayuk is not going to be available at the start of the season, we don't think. So everything changes, and if you really want to be smart, you look at teams like this, and this is kind of where your value can be.
I'll ask you one question. Is the offensive line healthy? Is Trent Williams healthy? Because that's really all that matters in San Francisco. It's plug and play with everybody. I'm not saying Deep is a bad player, a bad wide receiver, bad running back, whatever position you want to put him at. He's not. But Kyle Shanahan has created a system that is plug and play, and everybody is disposable, and things can move on. I mean, for crying out loud, they still have Christian McCaffrey, and that's really kind of the biggest rub of the whole thing. If he's healthy, it's a completely different dynamic for this entire offense. So if the offensive line is healthy, I don't have really many concerns about this offense being able to put up points. For crying out loud, Brock Purdy is running it. That ought to tell you that it's plug and play.
That was going to be my next question is, when you're trying to talk about spreads and winning and covering, DG, it's about, is it going to be an offense that flows? Is it going to be an offense that struggles to score? And now that Purdy has his bag, I would think the confidence would go up, but we also know he has been injury prone.
I really like Brock Purdy, and I think that teaming him up a little bit with Ricky Pearsall in this lineup will be the biggest dynamic duo that just on this 49ers team, because you obviously have CMC, who is incredible, but I'm talking about your quarterback to receiver. I think that tandem is going to be really good this year. But what I look at when you're looking at spreads, I don't see this being a sexy offense for the 49ers. And so because of that, I think it's going to be all about controlling the line of scrimmage, controlling the tempo of the game. And so there could be closer games where they might be in control, but it'll be closer on the number. And so because of that, if there are big numbers, I would probably go the other way.
Mikey, how much do they need George Kittle to get back to being all pro?
I think they absolutely need him. But like Zeno said, this is very much a plug and play offense. The one thing we have not mentioned at all is Robert Saleh is back as the defensive coordinator there for the San Francisco 49ers. And you talk about Kyle Shanahan and the system he's built. Saleh's going to come right back, fit in, like your favorite ex-girlfriend, and they're going to fall back in love with one another. And I think Robert Saleh is going to carry that defense to being an absolute force this year.
Only you would have a favorite ex-girlfriend, Mikey. Only you. So the bye week is not until week 14. And Zeno, I really feel like sometimes that is very underrated because we had other teams that we featured the last 2 weeks that had their bye week in week number 5. To me, it's a big, big difference. Sandwiched around the bye week is a game at Cleveland on November 30th, which we know last year was just an abomination. And then coming out of the bye, they have Tennessee, Indianapolis, Chicago, and Seattle. So if they can get to the bye week, those last 4 games are going to be relatively easy.
Yeah, and 3 of the last 4 at home, so that absolutely helps when it comes to finishing off the last quarter of the season strong. But the big question is, how healthy can they stay to that point? For a team that has been bit by the injury bug, you'd almost kind of like your bye week to be right smack in the middle of the season, week 8 or week 9, so they have plenty of time to see, sort of reset going forward. But again, it's not exactly a meat grinder of a schedule. But here's the other thing too: the back-to-back road games. And I talk about this all the time. Second tail end of back-to-back road games is always tough. They have 3 sets of back-to-back road games before the bye. That's a lot to deal with.
That is really, really a good point. Seattle, New Orleans to start the year. You pointed that out. Then week 5 and week 6, the Rams and Tampa Bay. And then weeks 8 and weeks 9, or week 8, week 9, at Houston and at the Giants. But DG, man, I'm just scanning one more time the schedule. If they don't win the NFC West, the Rams are going to be really, really good because I see easily 10 wins on the schedule.
Yeah, and then the number for them is the 10.5. And I know Big Cheesy likes them to go 11-6 at that point. I don't know if I'm there yet. I think 10 wins is kind of their honey hole because I don't think this team is going to be good enough to put teams away, in my opinion. And I think they're also going to get caught at some point because they're not going to be a team that can put people away. And because of that, I think you can easily get caught in the fourth quarter. And at that point, you're losing games that you should have won or were in control of throughout the entire game. And so I like them to get to 10, 9, and 8 is kind of like my perfect spot and record for them.
What about you on that, Mikey, as far as wins are concerned?
Yeah, I think I kind of like them at 9 and 8. But Coach, I have a question for you. You said the last 4 games of that schedule should be relatively easy for them.
Yes.
You were talking about the other ones, not the Bears, right? Not 17.
No, I was including the Bears. I was including the Bears.
Oh, no, you weren't.
Are you a writer for the Bears or are you a fan of the Bears? That's my question because you can't get past your fandom to actually focus on the task at hand.
Well, I'm a writer for the PFL, and I'm a fan of the PFL. So I invest all my emotion into all my work.
Oh
so
my
again,
God.
17.
Let me go to somebody who's going to give me an answer because you had to focus on me. I'm focused on the 49ers. So boom, you just lost your spot. Zeno, I'm going to come back over to you, big boy. Sorry, Mikey. Sorry. Now, because of how the 49ers are able to close things out with Purdy at the helm, they're really good. If you have a four-point lead, they can burn that last 7 or 8 minutes, and as a bettor, it can drive you insane. So being a team like that and seeing numbers where they are right now, how aggressive would you be playing a spread play for the 49ers before the season starts on any week?
I mean, look, again, the the laying the 3 in their first home game after 2 road games against Arizona, I would live with a push. I don't mind laying the
Okay.
3 ahead of time. Just kind of the way it sets up again their first home game after 2 road games. To not have to go over a field goal. I'll live with a push if that lands on a 3. That wouldn't bother me laying that number. I don't need to wait for the 2.5. I think San Francisco's a better team, and they seem to have had a good run against the Cardinals, particularly at home over the last couple of years. But I do have one quick question here, Coach. And
Yes.
DG, you'll have to help me out. Honey hole, is that some Memphis, Tennessee redneck slang for something I'm not aware? Because when I hear that term, my mind goes someplace else.
Listen, you can get your mind out of the gutter. Come on. The honey hole,
God.
good spot to be.
It's a Midwestern term for if there's a lot of fish in a lake. Is
So there's
basically
no
how they
honey
use that
involved
term.
in the honey hole.
No, there's no
No,
honey
there's no
involved in the honey hole. No. If you see somebody walking with a fishing pole, go, hey, boy, that's a honey hole over there. That's how it's used in a sentence. If you were in a spelling bee, but it's a very valid question. There's no issues with the question. I think it's very, very valid. Mikey, anything from you on anything DG is? No, because you still think the Bears are going to be a freaking good team this year. It's embarrassing. It truly, truly is embarrassing that you think the Bears are going to be anything more than 4-13. Maybe we'll have to have a over/under bet on it. I'm right here.